Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help mental health professionals grow their dream practices and live a life they love. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building tips. We invite you to take advantage of our private practice paperwork and our signature marketing e-course. And we have a gift for you. This is the exact methodology we use to create our six-figure private pay practices and have helped many other therapists do the same. Go to privatepracticestartup.com and on the homepage, click the button to download a free copy of your dream private practice playbook. Now on to today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. How's everybody doing today? It's a hot summer here in Florida. We've had record-breaking temps of the heat index being up to like 110, 115. It's been crazy. I know other people are experiencing that. So I'm blessed to have AC. I'm blessed my AC is working. And I'm excited about today's guest. But before I introduce her and talk about our topic, we hope that you joined us last time as we got to talk to Dr. Ajetta Robinson about how securing contracts really can boost your income in private practice. Really great podcast, super inspiring. Ajetta has created so many things in the world of mental health, utilizing her background from the corporate world and being a strategist, and what she's doing and creating is pretty awesome. And she's found ways to serve populations by securing contracts. And she talks all about that on the podcast. Definitely, if it's something that you've thought about or been thinking about and want to get into that, great podcast to listen to. So don't forget that. Today, we have Dr. Omolara Thomas Uadimo joining us, talking about the 5 strategies to turn your passion into profit. These podcasts are like perfect back to back. So yes, I'm going to recommend that you listen to both of them actually, because they're really going to help you. So listen to this one and then go back and listen to the one from Ajetta. So who is Dr. Omolara Thomas Uadimo? She was prompted by a diagnosis of MS in 2019 and transitioned her career as a professor, researcher, and pediatrician to co-founder of Strong Children Wellness, a multi-practice healthcare network that partners with communities to provide tech-enabled physical health, mental health, and social care for Medicaid-eligible and uninsured children and families, including those impacted by poverty, trauma, and immigration inequities. As a social entrepreneur, she has secured over $1 million in funding in less than 2 years without loans or investors. This prompted her to create Melanin in Medicine, a healthcare consulting firm that supports mission-driven healthcare organizations serving communities of color to secure grants, contracts, and alternative payment methods to help them scale and make a greater impact. Welcome. This is great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Yes, very excited to have you, and really excited to hear about your story, how you got into the field. So let's start there.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I think most of the people you have on probably say the same thing of, I didn't know that I would actually end up in this place exactly. But my background is I'm Nigerian American. I grew up in New York, and from the age of 5, I knew I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I was just recalling that when I was about 7 or 8, I did say to my mom, I want to have a practice and it's going to help all of the people in the community, mostly because I was disenchanted with my own, the practice that we had moved to, when I moved to Queens, and I just really didn't like the doctor and I loved my pediatrician from before. So that was why. So I was like, we're going to do this better at about 8 years old. In any case, my transition actually was, as I was going through medical school and through college, I realized that I had a really big passion for global health, and ended up, probably the first decade of my life focusing on traveling, to multiple countries. I lived in Malawi for about 1.5 years. I have traveled to about 12, 13 countries practicing pediatrics. And the reason I bring that up is that was probably the impetus for thinking about different ways and innovative ways to take care of low-income populations outside of what has been the norm here. And just having all of those different perspectives has helped me to really think about what I thought populations here needed. And so ultimately, when I did finally return back to the US and like put my roots down and had kids and everything, I ended up really honing in on under-resourced populations, a lot of work on immigrant populations, and felt that there was a lot of loss to follow-up, a lot of poor quality care, and ultimately got both burnt out and frustrated with how care was being given. And so in 2018, I found two other crazy, collectively frustrated Black female pediatricians. And I had this idea of, you know what, we've been trying to create community partnerships and all of these things to help support our families and trying to put Band-Aids on everything to make the health system run better for them. How about if we just bring our medical care into community-based organizations? So that way we can just provide a home in places that they trust, that provide all of the social needs and mental health needs and other things that they need, and really just bring the clinical care so that it's a one-stop shop. They thought it was a good idea. I brought it to a community partner and we actually wrote it down on paper. We had nothing. We had maybe just created an LLC, and we got our first $125,000 grant from a past funder of that organization. And I didn't know that that was going to be the impetus of, one, the track of how we would continue to get funding, in addition, of course, to actually getting revenue from the care that we provided. But number two, I didn't realize kind of that was the precipice of just starting with primary care and then being able to extend to mental health and social care management, and just allowing us to grow quite rapidly. So now we're going to open our third hub probably in the fall, and we have about 15 employees, and we started in New York in 2020 as soon as the pandemic started.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a lot. But yeah, that's a very, very short version of my journey. And so now I run that practice as CEO, and of course my co-founders are CEO, COO, and Chief Health Officer. And then in addition, because of how we've innovatively gotten funding, I started Melanin Medicine as a consultant to really just support more BIPOC-led practices to help them get access to funds, since a lot of the traditional ways either are not available a lot of times, or they're de-incentivized because of high interest rates and other things that unfortunately a lot of BIPOC individuals are discriminated against, or in terms of their path to getting funding. So that's me.
Wow. What a great story. And then I'm like listening to you and I'm like, oh my God, like we need to connect you with Dr. Ajetta Robinson. Very similar thing. She's in the medical community, we just got to make this connection.
She's in Maryland.
I know this is kind of like a behind the scenes thing, but like you both are just in like alignment to what you're all doing in both the medical and the mental health world. So super cool, super beautiful. Before we dive into your topic, and thank you so much for sharing your story, let's just take a quick moment for our sponsor.
Directories can be a good source for new clients, but which directories are really worth it? Well, according to an extensive review of therapist directories by Very Well Mind, more than 90% of therapists recommend Mental Health Match. We love Mental Health Match because they understand that the therapeutic relationship starts even before the client contacts you. They've set up their directory to give clients a sense of confidence in you as a clinician and connection with you as a person. Their smart matching technology makes sure you only hear from clients who are a good fit for your practice. And referrals come with insightful information about the client, their presenting problems, and what they seek in a therapist. With over 10,000 clients coming every week, Mental Health Match is a great way to find the clients you want. Erin Moore, a New Jersey therapist, said, "I've been getting almost 2 referrals a week from Mental Health Match, and I like their ability to match me with my niche clients. These clients reflect my skill sets, and they come ready and open to the therapeutic process. This is energizing for both the therapist and clients. We could not agree more. And now you can try Mental Health Match for free for 90 days. Just go to mentalhealthmatch.com and use referral code STARTUP. That's mentalhealthmatch.com and referral code STARTUP."
So you kind of alluded to a little bit about like your story and where this led to the topic, right? So we're going to be talking about the 5 strategies to really turn your passion into profit. So where shall we start?
Yeah. So, the reason I thought of that topic in that way was because I feel like a lot of us as practice owners, and I focus a lot on primary care and mental health practice owners. And I feel like a lot of us go in with a passion, and it's like this particular population, even though we want to help everyone, maybe this particular population you just feel really drawn to. And that was kind of the impetus. And in the day to day of starting your practice and going through the operations and trying to move things forward, that kind of goes a little bit to the side, and you are just inundated with how do we get more patients in, how do the P&Ls look, and all of that. And one of the things that was really exciting to me was utilizing partners who are already working with target populations that you want to work with, really using that as the way to leverage, not only to bring profit into the company, but also to find your purpose again. And so what I like to say is that I want practice owners to make sure that they provide optimal patient care, but don't limit themselves to just doing that, because a lot of us have big passions on how we want to change health for communities. And actually the research shows that only 20% of health outcomes is actually contributed by clinical care. So meaning that in order to really address health outcomes for our populations, if we're just focusing on the clinical care aspect, we are actually just touching a 1/5 of what's actually a part of really changing people's lives. And so it's about starting to think about what that passion is again, whether it be a certain population, whether it be a certain topic area, and then what are the ways we can actually profitably start to tap into that outside of or beyond just the clinical day to day.
Yeah, and
what are just out of
go ahead, Katie.
No, just out of curiosity, what are the other factors?
Yeah, so usually the biggest chunk are unmet social needs. So if you think about where, and we call these the social determinants of health, right? So where people play, live, food, employment, all of those things that people are like, really? Is that something that we should be talking about? So how, if a person is employed, if they have childcare, if they have food, if they have housing, these are, and what that looks like, violence in the neighborhood, all of those things are actually going to impact the health of that person even more dramatically. And then, of course, behavioral, right? So what are the things in terms of course, we know exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, but also in terms of how they move around, transport, access, all of those things. And so one of the interesting things about Strong Children Wellness and how we built it was we said that we're not going to do primary care only at all. We're going to, of course, have navigators and people who support the larger scope of that patient's life. So our navigators are helping with transport, food, housing, and we focus a lot on families that are disadvantaged. About 80% of our population is Medicaid covered. So that's kind of the whole 100%.
Yeah, I love to hear how you're looking at this from such a systemic perspective, and being able to take that step back to make a greater impact. So not just being tied to the clinical hours with how many clients how many patients from your side and how many clients, we call them clients on our side for therapists, how many can you see per day or per week, but really taking that step back and looking at the bigger impact that you want to make in the community and the families that you serve, and being able to strategically find ways to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the biggest thing for me has always been doing the interrogation work. And I like to say I have this framework, but and it's like a 6 eyes or something. But the first thing is the interrogation of where you're at right now. Right. And so that's going to either be time, energy, or money, where it's like, our money is suffering and we need more profitability or cash flow, or the time in terms of like how much, who's bringing in are the people who we have actually bringing in and creating more time and allowing for us to have more time with patients and allowing us to do the work that we love. But a huge piece around what we're talking about today is the energy and really identifying what is my strength? What am I really passionate about in this whole scheme of like taking care of patients? What's the part that I love? A lot of times that can be either education. A lot of times it can be the clinical services, but getting it out to other communities and organizations. Other times it can be training. And then a lot of times it can be consulting and helping people think about strategy. And so the goal is in this work that we do is to say that your practice is not just there for patients, but it's also there for the larger population and for a partner. Are there partners who need your work as well and need your brain and your skill set as well? And that's how we've positioned our practice to be able to get grant opportunities in partnership with nonprofits, or even just get contracts with nonprofits to be able to extend the impact of the work that we and our staff do.
Mm-hmm. So really, it's like looking at the aspect that you love and that you do well in what it is that you do and what you're passionate about, and really like finding the other folks to build team and partnership to really bring this vision to life is what I'm kind of hearing.
Yeah, a good example was a pediatric pulmonologist who, day to day, she's taking care of patients, very severe asthmatics, but wants to affect the community. That's her big thing. She's like so upset about how things are going. This is a real client, so upset about how things are going in the community, especially that kids are still like dying from asthma. She's like, that should not be happening. And so ultimately what her impetus was, okay, let me go do some talks, let me go do some fairs, and we talked about, okay, this is wonderful, but one, it's not going to help bring you enough funding in to be able to now manage taking care of patients and doing that practice and being able to do this work. And so the way that we were able to bring in a new contract for her, and I have another example about a grant, was we actually found who are the people taking care of asthmatics and what's the gap. And so we were able to look in her locality and find one of the nonprofits who's huge and having community health workers take care of asthmatics. But then we found that the gap was they could only really take care of mild, moderate asthmatics, but not the severe ones because they didn't have that expertise on board. And so we were able to help position her practice as this practice that could provide mentorship, support for those community health workers, and consultations as needed. And that's in less than 90 days. She got her first multi-5-figure contract, and now she has a longer role. They were like, we're keeping you. So now she gets multiple 6 figures for the year doing that kind of work that she loves. And it allows for her to be able to bring in a nice profit margin, as well as still continue to have the practice go and not feel like, okay, I got to see more patients to bring more revenue into the company and fulfill her passion, which is really exciting.
Yeah, awesome. So let's just take a quick moment for our sponsor.
As a private practice owner, there are dozens of things to worry about. If you decide to accept insurance billing does not have to be a worry. Practice Solutions is a remote billing company who connects providers with billers in the U.S. who specialize in mental health billing. Their expertise has helped clinicians increase and maintain steady revenue by submitting and following up on claims regularly, resolving old aging claims, and performing eligibility and benefit checks. With Practice Solutions, you're assigned a billing expert who learns the ins and outs of your practice, functioning as an extension of your own team, so you can focus on what matters most, your clients and growing your practice. One of Practice Solutions' current clients says, Practice Solutions has been amazing for my practice, its growth, and my peace of mind when it comes to billing. Practice Solutions works with clients ranging from solo practitioners just starting out, as well as to larger group practices with multiple clinicians. Practice Solutions offers a free billing consultation to determine if their services are a good fit for you and your practice. Visit practicesoul.com/startupnation and schedule an appointment. Again, that's a free consultation at practicesoul.com/startupnation.
As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using Therapy Notes. They make billing, scheduling, note-taking, telehealth, and e-prescribing incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. Look, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Therapy Notes is the #1 highest rated EHR available today with 4.9 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot and Google. Go to therapynotes.com and enter code PPS as in private practice startup and receive a special 2-month trial, absolutely free. And hey, if you're coming from another EHR, no worries. Therapy Notes will import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost to you so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time. Go to therapynotes.com and enter code PPS for your 2-month free trial. Okay, go ahead. You were going to ask a question?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. So, tell us a little bit how you're kind of looking at, because your world is the medical practice, but how you're combining like medical and mental health and, I'm assuming are more doctors reaching out to you and then you're helping to fill the gap? Are you looking to pair the mental health with medical? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's really interesting. I am, of course, a primary care physician, but the majority of my clients are mental health practice owners, which I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I think it's because it covers like the same methods that we're doing cover, whether it's a mental health practice or a primary care practice. Of basically the first thing is the part where I like to say ideation. So after you've interrogated, oh, this is what I want to do, right? This is the thing that these are the people who I want to affect. The ideation is really around what is it that you can provide that you feel most attuned to, that another organization who is serving large amounts of that population actually needs. And so that's when I talk about those 4 things. It's either outsourcing your clinical services and bringing someone, potentially one of your therapists, or contracting someone to provide services for another organization. It could be community health education or helping that organization bring more education to their clientele, training their staff on how to provide mental health, for example, better for their employees. Or it could be strategic consultation where there's an actual leadership who wants to build out this kind of mental health well-being program and has no clue how to do that and needs your expertise. For us as an integrated care practice, the way we did it for our practice just before we were even moving out into partnering was really being able to say to ourselves, what were the unmet mental health needs that existed amongst our population? And I think it was about 30% of our population when we did the screenings were like, oh my gosh. And what we found was the difficulties and the loss of follow-ups and the discoordination of care of patients when we referred them out. And so the goal was, how do we bring everything and make it easy? And also the communication between, and you guys have probably experienced that as well, trying to communicate with primary care. And so how do we make that easier? And by being able to have everything in one place, it was amazing. And then the only thing we wanted to add was a lot of our families, whether it was because of domestic violence or homelessness or other issues that weren't getting resolved, their mental health couldn't get resolved, couldn't get improved, or their primary care. So that was when we decided to layer on that additional care management part to really support them as at a whole.
That's amazing.
I love how you talk about the system as a whole and looking for the gaps in the system. Because as you were just talking about the communication aspect between like primary care and mental health, in my days of community mental health, I can remember so many times that one of my teen clients might go in for suicidal ideations into the hospital, and then they just like blanket refer them back or out or somewhere, and there's never a follow-up. And I also remember like they would refer them to a psychiatrist, maybe on their insurance, maybe not. and maybe the psychiatrist wouldn't have, an appointment for them for like months. And it's just like, this is not good quality of care. So I love that you all are looking at, these gaps, and really trying to find a way to fill them to obviously, help and support people like in totality, and overall wellness in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about kind of that passion to profit, right? You ideate and you're like, yay, I know exactly what it is. And then it's like, oh, how is that going to actually make money? Okay. Right? And then you go into a fetal position and rock yourself to sleep. But I think...
And then you have analysis paralysis. Let's not forget that, friends.
Exactly. Can it not? No, it won't. Yes, it will. So you ideate, and then what you do, that next step is identify. And so this is some of the work that we do with clients where we're building out what is the offer. We call it an offer suite, a contracting or grant offer suite. And so what is it that we can provide? And then we start to look at who are the right organizations. I'll be very frank that while there are a number of different organizations that you can, of course, partner with, our bread and butter has been nonprofits because of the focus on under-resourced communities and health equity. And so that is why we kind of center in on partnerships with those types of organizations, because their access, their buy-in, and their credibility with those populations. And once we identify the right people and organizations, we're usually looking at, of course, their financial stability, but also, do they have the services? Are they taking care of the right population? But do they have a complementary mix of services, right? If they're providing the same thing we're providing, then probably not a good mix. And once we do that, then the goal is to like introduce ourselves, right? Let's get to know each other. And a lot of times we're helping them develop the assets that includes intro emails or elevator pitches. And so that it's really easy for them to communicate their strengths and exactly what it is that they can offer that potential client organization. And then once we move from there, the fourth step is actually interaction. And that really is a place where I think a lot of practice owners kind of flub up a little bit, just because they go in with, this is what we want to do. And it's kind of like, we need to collect some information, right? And we really need to. And so we walk through kind of a discovery call format of like, how do we discover if this is even a good relationship, if this is the right thing, but also what are all of the needs that they have within the focus area, so that then you have a plethora of information to do the next step, which is innovate. And that's when we help them create their proposals, where it's like, they said this and they said that, so this looks like it would be the best match for them. And we help them walk through not only putting together a proposal, but then how to present it in the most compelling way that usually leads it to getting funded. And we use that same format for whether the nonprofit organization decides that they want to contract them, or if they want to do something called fiscal sponsorship, where they go to past funders and get grant dollars for their organization to basically contract your for-profit. And so that's how we've gotten grant funding. It's not directly, we've gotten a few that come out that go directly to us, but a majority have been being able to present our opportunity to work together, and then being able to bring that to funders. And those funders being able to say, yep, we love that. Here's 250,000, or here's another 100,000. To date, in my past life prior to entrepreneurship, I had done about 2.5 million for health equity programs in terms of bringing that in. Now we've done another 1.2 million in grants and contracts. And it really, once you have those 5 steps, it really then becomes really easy to just do it again and again and again and make more and more impact and touch more organizations.
You are clearly in your zone of genius, and this is your superpower. It's amazing to hear what you've done and how you're helping other practitioners in all sorts of different niches to be able to do something similar and to make a greater impact, and to look at the whole systems and for the gaps, and to create these relationships with the sponsorship and contracts and funding. And I mean, it's just amazing to hear what you're up to.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And what do you hope our listeners take away from your message today, Omolara?
I really hope that I would say two things. One, I really hope that they can see the power, of course, in what they do as a clinician, but they can also see that they don't have to limit it to that. That they, I like to say that it's time to not only get paid for what you do, but compensated for what you know. And the idea of that, of thinking about what have you learned and what are you still frustrated by, right? And if you think about it in that way, who are the patients that, you get not frustrated by them, but by the situation that they're dealing with, and starting to think broader about who else is serving these patients and how can we work together to bring that forward. And I think the second thing is creating ecosystems around your practice. So starting to think about your practice is not just like this isolated health, giving organization, but thinking about all of the organizations around you in your community as the same thing, that they're contributing to health in different ways. And what is the way where is the place that you guys can connect and say, if we did it like this together, could we multiply or even just improve the effectiveness of both of our work and of the outcomes of the patient? So just thinking in ecosystem is really important. And then also thinking beyond clinical care, I think is really important too.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and, sharing your passion and how to help both medical, mental health, and really kind of everyone else in that ecosystem create this and meet the gaps in the community that need to be served. So we appreciate you being here. And I know that you have a giveaway for our audience. What is that?
Yeah. So monthly, I actually do a masterclass, a live masterclass that goes more in depth into like each of the parts of the processes. It's called the Profitable Practice Partnerships Masterclass. And so the thing that I usually am able to do and give away is if you register for it, you get our free LinkedIn connection cheat sheet. So what that is, as I mentioned, ecosystem and organizational partners are really important. But a lot of times it's how do I get in contact with these leaders? How do they even recognize me or even have a conversation? So we have a cheat sheet that helps you to use LinkedIn to really, if you find that organization and you're like, how do I talk to the CEO or the CMO and tell them about ourselves? So that's what our cheat sheet does to help you actually make that connection so you can get going on that.
Awesome. And we'll go ahead and include that in our show notes. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for reaching out to us and sharing, your passion. We hope that you all join us next week as Kate and I take the mic as both your host and guest, talking about 6 ways to master your mindset as a business owner. It's not a one and done. It's a constant. And at every step of growth, there's something new to master. So check out that podcast next time.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Omolara, and Startup Nation. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We always want to encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Your feedback is so helpful for us and being able to really curate this content to meet your needs all along the journey. So in the meantime, stay inspired and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.